This is honestly a love of mine, and I don't do it anymore, but I help academic writers all the time with their online presence. I'm really focused on the digital side. So today I have Dr. Katy Peplin from Thrive PhD, and she's going to ask me questions for academic writers because next month is Academic Writing Month. But before we get to the questions, tell us a little bit about AcWriMo.
Okay, so I'm so excited to be here. But AcWriMo, which is so much more fun to write than it is to say, but is on National Novel Writing Month, which is a sort of like long-standing, decades-old internet tradition at this point, where people sign up and try and write 10,000 words of a novel draft in the month of November. And there had long been sort of a community around novel writing in that way. And starting kind of like the origins of it now are sort of lost to the mists of internet time, but academics have been jumping onto it. And I've been doing programming for this since 2018, which is quite a few years ago now. But I am really excited because the kind of way that we do it in the Thrive PhD universe, and now I have this great collaborator, Dr. Kate Henry, but we really believe in sort of building a writing practice. And so not necessarily like belting yourself to your chair until you write that journal article or that chapter, but thinking about this as a month to kind of intentionally touch in with your writing, touch in with your projects, experiment with things, and build some awareness around that writing practice. Because let's face it, like November is the time where like the end of the year looms closer and closer, and all of these things that felt really far away in September or July, when you're like, sure, I'll have that done by the end of the year, suddenly become very real at the same time that like semesters end and holiday stuff ramps up and human things are so complicated. And at least where I am in the Northern Hemisphere, the daylight goes away very suddenly. And so there's just a lot of things that make writing in November even more challenging. And so I find that it's been really fun and helpful to provide as much support as we possibly can for free that whole month.
I love it. And this is one of the things that we're creating to be a free resource for people. So if you're watching this and you're an academic writer, your friends or supervise an academic writer, please share it with them because we're going to be sharing tips, advice, and really the struggles that people sometimes go through when it comes to sharing their writing. So this video is for you.
It
Okay.
really is. Yes. So I'm so excited to be asking you some questions because you're such a leader and kind of like expert in this space. But I would love to, just for the academics among us, how do you define an online presence? Because I know that's one of those things that can feel bigger than it is, but also smaller than it is. So kind of what do you include under that umbrella?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question because I feel like people have a really limited view of what it is to the things that we create about ourselves. Like if I don't have a website, if I don't have, social media, then I don't have an online presence. But that's not true. Your online presence is anything that people can find about you online, whether it's intentionally created by you or not. So that's Google search results. It's maybe if people chat GPT to learn a little bit more about you, like what comes up. So there's a lot of ways that we can find what our online presence is, but there's also a lot of ways that we can be intentional in creating and shaping how people find our story online.
Yeah, that's such a generous way to look at it because I know so many people who are like, I don't want a LinkedIn or I don't want to be on this platform. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be there. And all of that makes sense to me, but it also can be what you want it to be. The kind of point is to be intentional about it.
Yeah, and I think that when we think it's only social media or only websites or sometimes even only faculty profile, the thing that we're often missing is your bio. Like your bio, your academic bio, that is ending up on conference websites, for journals, for events, programming, maybe fellowships or associations that you're involved with. There's so many places where your bio can show up online that it really ends up becoming a massive part of your online presence. People don't expect that.
Yeah, phew. As somebody who has to like regularly produce bios about myself and almost always feels some like tension about it. Yes. And I think that it's such a good point that like it's more information about us circulates beyond where we put it on purpose, right? So,
Exactly.
okay. Well, then, what are the benefits that you see of for academics or people kind of in the scholarly space that really do take that step to be intentional and thoughtful about the way that they show up online? Like, what are the benefits that people can see from that?
I think the benefits that people maybe assume that they're going to see is like a lot of reach or maybe a ton of reads on their writing, and that kind of myth is, I mean, it's not inaccurate. Like, if you share more, like, people will find you more. But the truth is that the benefits are really about the more individual connections. Like, the reader who reads your writing and not only like understands it and relates to it, but is citing it and helping
Yeah.
share it with a larger goal in mind of being part of the research community. And so when I think about the connections that people are sometimes hoping for online, it doesn't always equate to the meaningful, deep relationships that they really enjoy that have come out of it. So, whether that's research collaborations, new friends in your field, learning about a new conference or association that maybe you hadn't heard of before, I think there's so many opportunities for connection that we miss because maybe we just don't think there's agency in doing that, especially if networking feels uncomfortable to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the sort of way that you're framing that because I think that for so many of us, who reads us or even like our H index or these kind of like really concrete data things are the easiest to measure. So
Mhm.
we measure them first, but often they're not separate from, but
Yeah.
not necessarily as meaningful as we might want them to be, like in terms of the results we're actually looking for.
To give you an example, so to be honest, I don't share my academic writing much. I haven't done academic writing since grad school. So when I think about my own academic writing and my experience of sharing it, it's been very surprising. So when I shared, so I'm a medievalist, like literature, and so when I shared an article that I had published, I was very surprised by the people who were responding to me, people who were not in my field, people who were not academics, people who cared about the literature, but I didn't know that they did because they weren't in the kind of environment that I was used to
Yeah.
having these discussions in. And so even my own experience, even though it's like relatively old for now, like I think that it was so meaningful for me to see the kind of invitation that it ended up being that I didn't expect. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, 8 people are going to go read this article now that I've posted it on my personal Facebook. But that's what happened. And not only did that happen, but like someone was like, oh, and I read this article. I brought it back to the grad school class where we're talking about this book. So then everyone ended up reading it.
Yeah.
And I really thought that I was just posting kind of to brag, to be like, hey, I got this article
You
out
did
and
it. You
this
should.
is
Yeah.
great. Like as a grad student, I was very proud of myself and I wanted to share that feeling with people. So while sharing your article can be the intention of your post, it's also okay if what you're sharing is more like me, like a feeling or the kind of warmth that we
Yeah.
feel about our article and about our writing. It's okay to be open about that, even if you think that the people aren't going to read it.
Oh, I love that so much, and I think that it's such, like, a brave and kind of generous thing to share because, like, so much of the academic discourse is like, "I have officially done this important thing," and, like, I talk about it with important people and in important stoic ways, and sometimes you really are just like, "Listen, folks, I passed my exams." But there's something so, um important about sharing authentically. And I think that that's something that academics can miss because in a lot of spaces we have that authenticity um, gently guided out of us, or sometimes with a lot more force than that.
That's true. And I think that sometimes when my faculty clients, like we're working together on social media, sometimes, I mean, it's pretty rare, but like sometimes we're actually focused on sharing their book or a specific publication or report that they've written. And when that happens, they think that I'm going to tell them what to do. Like they think that I'm going to give them like, here's the specific template. We're going to do all the things. And instead, oftentimes we're just having a conversation. I'm taking notes while we're writing, but like the things that you think already, the things that you want to share about your book already are good enough. They don't need someone else to come in and tell you how to do it or what to do or what to say.
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes there's things that we can add or tweak or enhance, because the thing that comes right out of our mouth, sometimes it needs a little bit of revision to help more people understand it.
And that leads so beautifully into this question that I have, because I tend to work with a lot of like early career scholars, so grad students, postdocs, people who are just getting their feet wet. And there is this real like anxiety about like, who am I to be sharing about this thing? So, to your mind, like what counts as expertise? Like, what makes this important enough to share? Or do you measure it with something else altogether?
That's a good question. I don't think that I measure it, which is
Yeah.
maybe the most interesting part of that. I'm going to give an example. I had Meg Mindlin, who is an amazing graduate student here on the Social Academic Podcast, and she has a very large platform on social media. She shares videos, she shares octopus art. Like, she is so cool. And she has that same kind of feeling like, is this good enough to share? Like, it doesn't matter how large your platform is, you can still have that imposter syndrome. And frankly, it doesn't matter where in your career you are. Like, Meg is feeling that as a recent master's student graduate. And my clients who are senior faculty, many of them, like, also still feel that way.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to like recognize that feeling, but maybe still practice it anyway, because it might not go away. But you know what always makes it go away? When my clients and I are doing this live on a call, we have a post, we're ready to post it, we put it up, and they get engagement sometimes
Mhm.
while we're still live. They're like, oh, that's a relief. That's a relief, because I was scared about posting it. I did it because I was on the call with you, but now it's out there and
Yeah.
people are seeing it. So the act of actually doing it, even if it's just once or twice for this, even if you feel uncomfortable, it's good practice. And I would say it's okay to sit with that discomfort a little bit. If you're talking about something sensitive, if you're attracting negative reactions, I think that's a different consideration. But for the vast majority of the things that you post, there are ways to talk about it that are not necessarily going to invite that kind of negative reaction. So I just want people to feel a little bit more open to exploring it. And if you draft a post, like, hit publish. Like, if it's about your publication, like, hit publish, even if you're not sure. So many of the people that I chat with are like, oh yeah, I drafted it, but I didn't, it didn't end up published. And so, yeah, my hope for you is that it ends up published.
Oh, what a generous hope. And I think it really reminds me of some of my like favorite pieces of writing advice, which almost all boil down to doing the thing is doing the thing. So writing isn't necessarily thinking about writing, learning about writing, strategizing about your writing, drafting your writing. Like, writing is writing. And I think what you're saying is like sharing and building your presence is about sharing and building your presence, and that there's so much benefit in practice and doing it and learning that way, as opposed to trying to like perfect it up here first.
Yeah, and the results are long term, especially if we're thinking about, I guess, to be specific, like a social media platform like LinkedIn. Yeah, your post goes out today, maybe tomorrow, but that post has potential to reach people next week, next month, next year. I literally went into my LinkedIn analytics yesterday and was like, wow, some of these posts are from like over a year ago, and they're still reaching people this week. It's surprising, but I think that potential was missed on Twitter. Yeah, you could reach a lot of people fast, but when the relevant people missed it the first time, they're not going to see it later. And that potential is possible on a profile like LinkedIn. It means that, like, maybe it's okay. You put a little bit of energy into your LinkedIn profile, even if you're not job searching, you're not doing any of the things. Like, I get it, but LinkedIn can still help you reach all those people when you have something you want to say. It doesn't have to be all the time.
Oh, the like, ooh, they hit as somebody who's trying to up level on LinkedIn at this exact moment. I'm really resonating with what you say, because it is this kind of like vulnerable. They make it so easy to measure things like likes and metrics and shares, and you're like chasing that dopamine hit. And you forget that the post lives beyond that initial kind of chemical brain reaction. And so it's helpful to know, good or bad, that there's a long tail. Okay. So I now have sort of, as from where you're sitting, say I'm a graduate student, I'm an early faculty member, I'm even a late faculty member. Goodness knows we're all busy. I only have a certain amount of time. What's your best pitch for investing some of my precious energy into building this presence when it might not necessarily be something that's directly measured by my advisor, my chair, my tenure committee, my colleagues? Sort of, why do it?
That's a good question. I think that the advice that I had even a year ago probably would have been different, but I've had a lot of graduate students reach out this year because they want a stronger online presence. They don't have the time, especially like mid-career people with family or folks that are in like a transition of fields. Like if you don't have the time, but you still want an online presence, there's ways to have that happen. You don't have to work with me, but just know that there's people that can help you and that you don't have to do it yourself, or you can do it with a friend. Like there's different ways to take back or make better use of some of that time if doing it yourself is not ideal. When you are planning to stay in academia, when you're planning to have the research thinking projects that you're working on now be something that people can engage with long term, it's always a good investment of your time to create your online presence. I would never suggest someone not create an online presence unless personal safety was really at not just like the forefront of their minds, but like could affect their mental health. And I'm saying that as someone who has been there before. I'm a survivor of domestic violence. When I left my abusive ex-husband, I deleted all my socials. I didn't have anything, and I didn't want to be found online by anyone. So I've been there, but I also know the power of taking that space back and being really intentional about what people find there. Do I literally still worry that my ex-husband is going to like email my clients and harass them? Yes. I'm not going to lie. Like, honestly, like that is possible. And so when I think about how I show up online, I am very intentional about who is going to see this, how they can engage with it, and what the potential ramifications are if something goes wrong. And I think about that also right now in terms of protecting my clients when things in America are politically quite volatile for freedom of speech. So there's a lot of things that I think we can take into consideration in terms of time and energy that are beyond just us, like that are a part of the larger world. But when it's your own time, it doesn't all have to happen at once. Any small change that you can make for your online presence, whether you're in grad school or an early career researcher or much later on in your academic career, that time and energy makes a difference. Maybe you're only updating a sentence or two in your bio. Maybe you're spending a day focusing on creating that LinkedIn profile that you really did not feel like you needed in the past. There are things that you can do and you have agency in doing, but it doesn't all have to happen at once.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to happen at all if it's not a goal for you. But for most writers that I talk to, it is a goal. At least sharing their writing, sharing their research is a goal. And so I encourage you to have that online presence, even if it's not the personal online presence that maybe you see friends or colleagues having too.
I think that is such like generous advice, and I'm so happy to hear you talk about the sort of risk of this, because I know that I personally am working with a lot of clients who are afraid, not just for their own sort of reputation online, but for the funding of their labs, for the ability to get doxxed if they're studying a thing that somebody finds. And I think what you said earlier in kind of our conversation, that you have an online presence, whether you work on it or not, that being able to shape things like how I appear on my department website, how I appear in my bios in places that people can access and could potentially, Freedom of Information Act or get access to. all of that information exists online for most of us through these old conference programs, through all of these other things that like more and more are being ingested or searchable in maybe ways that weren't even 2 years ago. So it's going to happen whether you are intentionally engaging with it or not. And so this is maybe a moment for people to say, okay, how can I think about these presences and show up in them in a way that accurately represents my research, but also takes into account that like I need to stay safe, my colleagues need to stay safe, my students need to stay safe. And if they're going to write it, I might as well write it. Like,
I think that there's power when we show up online. I think that there is also an invitation for folks who maybe look like us or think like us or worry about the same things as us or care about the same things. There is potential for those people to see the space that you've taken online and feel that they can claim some of that too, that they can also create more storytelling, more openness, more connection through what they're able to share online.
and I think about that with sort of my own presence all of the time because I am pretty open about my mental health struggles on my blog. And I am incredibly privileged to do that in a lot of ways because I'm my own boss. So, like, nobody's going to fire me if I, say something. And so if I can be the one to take on some of that risk and say, hey, I had a really crappy mental health day, and here are 6 ways that I reset. And knowing that I'm putting that information out for people to encounter it when they need it to. And if I can take that risk, then that lets other people take some of that burden off. And I think that's one of the ways that like communities can function really generously is to say like, okay, I have the space to take some of this on. Why don't I host the meeting point for this idea so that you can benefit from it and maybe not have to take that on yourself?
Yeah, I really like that. And for graduate students who are teaching, early career researchers who, teaching is not just a focus for you, but something that you care about, your online presence can really help your students. It can really, I have a whole article on it on the Social Academic blog. I'll put it in the description
Please do.
after this live because I feel like there's so many people who maybe they're not going to make an online presence for themselves. They're not going to make an online presence for their writing, even if they want more people to read it. But they will make an online presence if they understand ways in which it helps more people, especially the people they're teaching or helping mentor. So I wanted to encourage you, even if you're not thinking about this for yourself, it's okay to think about it for other people too, because sometimes you're doing it for other people, but it ends up helping all of you. And I think that's really beautiful.
Oh, that's such yes, please do link that for me and for everybody because I think that's one of the important ways to sort of think about this is that this nourishes all the way down. And just to give like a practical example, I work with a lot of people who are looking for labs to join, looking for, advisors, or they're looking for even job searches and they're trying to figure out fit. And there's so much information intentionally there and not sometimes that lets people know this is a good fit for me. I would be safe to research here. And if you think about it like that, like these are secret love letters to help you find the grad students who would be really aligned for you, the collaborations that would be really helpful, then that can kind of give an incentive where you should make a LinkedIn so that you can have a LinkedIn might not have that same hit.
Could I give an example of that?
Yes, please do.
So I was working with, actually, I can't remember when this was, but like I was working with a PI and she was working on we were working on like the content for her website pages for the teaching section. And she was kind of wondering like, should I make this more for the students? Should it be more for like, people who are evaluating me? Like, I'm not sure who the audience of this page was. And I was like, first of all, let's make it for the students because I think that's what's going to be most helpful. But second, if we can provide a little bit more information for them about your lab, about what it's like to work with you, it will help them in their future careers. And she had like this light bulb moment, which was, oh, last time I was looking through applications for people who wanted to join my lab, I noticed that, one of the candidates had a specific lab that I had no idea what it was, like listed in their resume. And she was like, I couldn't find information about it online other than a quick mention on like a university website. So I had no idea how the research from this lab related to mine. And I almost passed the graduate student up. When they met, they actually talked about the lab and they had opportunity to see the connection more clearly. But that hesitation, like that almost stopped her from reaching out to the student to schedule that interview. And so when I think about the potential that is missed because PIs haven't taken the chance to have a little bit of a stronger online presence, it can harm your students. And so I don't want that to happen. But if you have the capacity, if you have the space to think about how you're showing up online, or if you're like a student in that lab that doesn't have an online presence, can you add a description of it to your LinkedIn profile so people can learn more about it? You have agency, whether that's inviting or letting your PI know that you would love for them to have a stronger online presence, or trying to find ways to create space for that yourself. You have options.
Yeah, well, and that makes me sort of lead into this next question, which is writing for an online audience is such a specific skill. Are there ways that you can suggest that people can, because I know that I personally, if somebody said like, hey, make a website to describe your lab, I might be like, I don't know how to do that, and sort of push it off because it's so much harder. So what are your like top tips for helping people build that skill of writing for this specific context?
Yeah, I think that before we can write for the specific contents, we kind of have to know what we want to write. And so the best resources that I have for folks who are like, I want to create a website and I'm not sure what goes on it, is I have one for personal academic websites and one for research lab websites. So there's an answer for both of you, but it is a long list, a descriptive list of page ideas for your website, because there's so much content that you could add. And there's only a handful of that content that probably is most relevant to you. So before you start writing, think about what's most important for me to share. I will link those articles below as well, because they are great resources for anyone who is creating a website, updating a website. If you're an academic who has that kind of permanent space online, check out these resources, because that's definitely the first place that I would recommend going. A lot of people get stuck in the writing process, which I'm sure you know. Yeah. And I think that's why the services that I create really take most of that away from, like, off of the plate of the faculty who I'm working with. So I end up doing a lot of writing for folks. Sometimes that's bio writing, which is its own project, but oftentimes it's condensing the things that we talk about in interviews and the materials that they've sent to me into written website content. But I want you to know that if you are like, I can design my own website and I don't really want to do my own writing, there are still people who can help you with that. So reach out to me and I'll help connect you with someone who may be able to support you in that process if you're not wanting to do it yourself. And I will say, you can be a very strong academic writer. You can be a very good public speaker. You can be very good at all of these things and still feel like your web writing isn't where you want it to be. And this is not an insult to you. This is not a lack of knowledge or skills or capacity. Oftentimes, it's much harder to write about ourselves than it is to write about other things, especially things where, like, yes, you're in research, you're getting all of these inputs, all of these places that you can cite and source and organize and reorganize, but like you're used to spending a lot of time on that. And when you think about spending that same amount of time on writing about yourself, it probably doesn't feel the same way as you feel about your research. And that's okay. So 1, it's okay to seek help. 2, it's okay to do it in steps. You could do a one-page website first and grow it over time. And 3, it's okay to just publish it. If you're not sure about your web writing and you maybe want to improve it, but you still want your website up, please publish it, because writing can always change over time. And your website will 100% change over time. There is almost no one that I've ever met that is like, I made this website once and haven't touched it since then, because oftentimes, it's not going to happen every year, but every once in a while, you're going to notice this doesn't quite feel like me anymore. And those are things that you can address and change because it's your space, because it's your website.
Oh, And I think that there's so much good advice and sort of strategy in there. But one of the things that I'm really hearing that is one of the sort of like common phrases out of my mouth too is that as academics, we are sort of taught that writing is forever. Once it gets published, it's a thing and it exists and it's citable. And the reality is, both about anything that's kind of online and also in a lot of ways, your academic writing, there's snapshots of your thinking in time. And if time changes and your thinking changes, then you get a new snapshot. And I think that so many of us carry this kind of really resistance to being like, I'm not sure that this accurately captures everything. I can't tell you, I change my website 5, 6 times a month because I'm always catching typos or things that didn't flow or things I want to change or things I want to tweak. And um, those things are so much more visible to me than they are to anybody else. I have built a thriving web presence with 0 capital letters and many typos everywhere all of the time because that's just sort of the kind of brain that I have and the way that I show up. I move a little bit faster and break more stuff and have to kind of redo it. But there is something to be said for learning to do a skill and building it in public. And I think that a lot of us as academics are really used to learning in private, building in private, researching in private, and then presenting publicly and having it be really big stakes. And I'm so much better of an academic writer because I started publicly writing. Those skills feed each other in a way that I didn't expect.
Now, one thing that I want to mention about that is a free tool, especially for graduate students, early career researchers. Owlstown is a free academic website builder. If you are wanting a website and you're like, I don't have website skills, I don't really want to develop them,
Yeah.
Owlstown can set up your website in like 15, 30 minutes. So you can have a website today for free that's easy to update and keep with you and kind of personalize a little bit even over time. So I just want you to know that that is an option for you if you're wanting a website, you're not wanting to do it yourself or work with a designer like me. Like, that's okay. There's
Yeah.
options for you to still have that space online.
And often, also to have another sort of like low cost plug, I know that my first academic website was hosted through my library at my university. And oftentimes, there is somebody in the kind of like beautiful warren of resources in libraries that if they don't know where to do it for free on campus, they can absolutely help you with almost all of those parts. So,
This is definitely true, but I am hesitant to
yeah.
recommend it to folks. And that's
Okay.
because I have met so many people whose websites just disappeared when their universities decided to stop offering that service.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes
Okay.
there's notice, but sometimes there's
There's not.
not. And so I just want to be upfront. If you are creating a space on a site that is internal, that's hosted by your university, yay. I'm so excited for you. Save a copy of all of your texts, save a
Mm,
copy of all your photos, just in case.
yeah.
Just in case something goes wrong, I want you to have that so it's movable to another space if you ever need it.
Oh, that yes. Speaking from people who lose access to their emails all the time, there is real wisdom in being like, use the university if they've got it, but keep a copy for you.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like when I was a grad student, like so much of the advice that was given to me was like, always use your university email address. This is how people are going to know that you're legit. But the truth is, like, I lost access to all of those emails. I have no idea of any of the conversations that were shared, and I did not save them in time in order to keep them. And so when I think about that loss of what feels like archive to me,
Yeah.
it makes me sad. And so when I think about the writing that you do, like, yes, academic writing is important, public writing is important, like anything that you create is important, but so are the emails and conversations that you have if they're meaningful for you to keep. And so, yeah, this is kind of like all areas of your life. If it's meaningful for you, try and find a way of saving it.
Well, and I think that's one of it's such good kind of like writing and information. This is what I find with like so many of my conversations with like really brilliant people in the academic spaces that we all find the places where everything all connects. And one of them is that it just is really important to keep hold of what's yours, whether that is your data, your information, and if there are ways to keep it personally, then it almost always behooves you to do it because as much as we would like to trust that the higher ed institutions are eternal and that our web space and storage will always be there, goodness knows that things really can shift.
Yeah, they really can shift. I was actually just I was hosting content education, content ed live. It was like a 48-hour higher education conference. And what I found was that there's so many people who are making very large decisions about things like website, things like technology infrastructure. And they're coming from like a top down approach of making decisions that help and improve things for the entire community. And oftentimes they're making decisions that affect faculty without recognizing some of the loss that can happen when this kind of decision happens. One example, this is not from the conference, but last year I had a client who came to me because his faculty profile, all of a sudden they've removed all the email addresses from faculty profiles. So the place that was the home for his online presence no longer helped connect media, journalists, or collaborators with how to actually get in touch with him. All of a sudden there was this new need for an online presence that allowed for those things. And so sometimes when those decisions come down from the top, they really do help everyone. You know, universities get over 30 million. This university in particular got 30 million spam and phishing emails like in a month. And so I understand why decisions are sometimes made, but when we don't have control over them, it means that we need to be aware of what our options are for taking up space outside of those structures, because we're all working towards helping students, helping research, helping facilitate the meaning of higher education in the world and how it impacts the real lives of the people who are in it. But if we're all losing access to the things that matter most to us, then sometimes we have to recreate those spaces ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think that there's something so important as kind of we like think about this whole umbrella of an online presence is thinking through kind of what are the most important things for you in this presence. And if one of them is, I want outside collaborators to find me, I want to be available for media, I want to be sort of public facing, then probably where you're going to spend your time and energy is completely different than I'm a PI. I want a steady stream of people in my lab who are like values aligned and project aligned. And they might spend their 2 or 3 hours a month completely differently than somebody who has these other kind of options. And I think that one of the things that I'm sure that you see as well as I do is that people kind of get the advice, like you have to have a website, you have to have this, you have to have that. And they don't really think through, okay, like what do I want this project, because it is a project, to do for me? And the more clarity you can have about that, the easier it is to make that project fit the need, as opposed to trying to like collage 7 or 8 things because somebody told you they were important.
100%. And oftentimes I found that like actually it may be 7 or 8 things that are important to you, but there's a hierarchy for what those things are in terms of your energy, your capacity, what actually fits into your life. So sometimes we're designing a website that is going to be attractive for media, for podcast invitations, even if that's not something you're like actively reaching out to, but the vast majority of our energy is going into explaining the lab and inviting people to explore the projects that you're doing. And so I want to encourage people to create intentional time for yourself to think about the people you want to come to your website or to come to visit your online presence. Maybe it's a LinkedIn profile. Who do you want to come there, and how do you hope that they can engage with you? I had one person be like, I just want like a repository. I don't actually want to engage with people, but I want them to find my writing. And that's okay too. We just published her website. It is out there and it's going to be with her for, frankly, a lifetime. Like websites can be there with you for a lifetime and they can grow and adapt with you as your goals and needs change. Maybe media podcasting is not a goal for you now, but when you're running a lab in 3 years, actually, it would be great to have your research talked on a research podcast in your field. How cool would that be to reach only people who are like really into the thing that you're talking about? That's exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it just is so, with so many things, the intentionality is key, and like a little bit of effort in the front to be like, what am I doing with this and why do I want it, can just pay dividends. So
And if you don't want to work through that on your own, reach out. I'm happy to
yeah.
help you with that process or do your website for you, whatever feels supportive.
Awesome. So, are there any other things like, I guess, sort of my last final question is, if you were to kind of sum up the very best thing about working with academics specifically on their online presences, as opposed to like micro influencers or content house kids, or like I taught digital media. So, like, I'm always like, ooh, the handlers of famous internet cats. Like, what's sort of so special about this group that keeps you coming back to this incredibly specific but, pretty diverse niche?
I'm really glad you asked about this because this is a question I've been thinking of a lot this year. This is the first year in my business where people from outside higher education are like, what are you doing in there? Like, what are you doing? It seems like your industry is imploding. You should consider coming and working over here, like
Yeah.
go work over there. I've had referrals for very large projects that are outside of academia, and I don't want any of them. And the people who refer them, they love that about me, to be honest, but they keep trying. And when I think about that, it's really because the researchers, academics, graduate students that I work with, they are each creating meaning in the world. They are each creating really interesting thinking, writing, teaching. The things that they do are also really varied. So, like, my brain that really likes to be creative in different ways gets to work with people in a lot of different fields. I get to learn so much from the people that I work with, and I get to hear their stories and experiences, and I relate to them. Even though I'm not in academia, I only work with academics. I mostly work with individuals. And so I'm not part of the world entirely, but I am supportive of this world entirely.
Yeah.
Actually, at the conference yesterday, someone said, we're all across universities all around the world, like we're all working towards this hope, And I thought, oh my goodness, like I'm not a chief marketing officer at a university, but I am someone who's working on the same problem, who's working towards this same future where research and education and teaching and mentoring and the service work and all the things that faculty do for their society,
Yeah.
it's meaningful and it makes a difference, and it doesn't have to stay hidden. I help people make connections that make more meaning and matter in the world for the things that they care about. And yes, I could go do that for a big company. I could go do that for, I don't know, like celebrities if I wanted to. I remember the first time that I pitched a musician on bio writing, and he said yes. And I was like, oh, wait. It's like, I don't know if I didn't end up doing that project, but I remember feeling like I can do a lot more, and I don't want to explore that because I love who I work with. And I have had to build some things into that, like flexibility to reschedule things. And that does change how I work with people, but it also means that I get to work with exactly who I care about supporting. And I love it.
Oh, I got like choked up when you talked about the hope, because I think
Yeah.
that, like, I know I was on parental leave for about 18 months, and I kind of
Mm,
came back to a completely different online landscape, but
yeah.
also a pretty different higher education landscape too. And I think that I work with people, and I think that AcWriMo appeals to a lot of people who are like, listen,
Mhm.
I f- wouldn't do this work if I didn't believe so strongly that someone needed it somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's something so important to me about being a tiny bit of the support that holds up the people who are doing that work. And so,
Yeah.
like, there's so much. I think about it a lot. Like, I am not the rock that goes in the pond that has the ripples that we can't even track. But like, if I can help, like, hold that hand up just long enough so that they can drop it. Like they did all of the work, but like if I could be on the side of the pond cheering and be like, it's okay to drop it,
I love
then
it.
I think that really goes, because there's such a misperception about what academics are or what we're doing or kind of what we spend our time on. And the majority of people are deeply invested in their
Yeah.
research because they believe it has the power to change something for someone, oftentimes for the better. And the more that we can do this important work of being like, this is what happens in this lab. This is why it's important that we put shrimp on treadmills. And this is why it's important that I go through these archives and I look at all of these things. And the more visibility, I think the more options that we have to change that narrative that we're all just spending money and brainwashing kids, because that's not it.
I think that the hope that I'm feeling that I'm working towards, I really felt it yesterday because I was hosting it was like 4 keynotes, like 7 breakout sessions, 2 Welcome to the Americas. Like it was 2 days back to back of being like host and moderator, and I loved it. But I realized at the very last session, the speaker, who was so amazing, he was like, "I recognize you from TV," and I'm like, "Oh, TV." Am I on TV? Like, have I been on TV? I was like, wait, I'm not on TV. And then I was like, oh, you mean like the conference lobby screen and like all of the sessions? Like, I literally forgot that I was on camera.
Yeah.
So many people met me and got to know me over the last 2 days, even though I didn't really get to know them as well because they were like webinar attendees, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm so proud of my online presence. I'm so proud of what I know they'll find if they want to connect with me further. That feeling of relief for networking, for sharing something, for putting myself out there in some way is huge. And so as an introverted person, I don't know, that surprises some people, but I'm very introverted. I spend most of my time at home working from my office here in San Diego.
Yeah.
And I connect with people online. But part of that connection, I would not feel as comfortable with it if I didn't feel confident in what people found about me. So if you're feeling like networking or sharing your writing or, you know, just being more open about who you are is uncomfortable, sometimes doing this work up front is the key to making it feel, like, you know?
Yeah, I absolutely do know. Because I send out a newsletter every Thursday, and I had published a pretty vulnerable one this week about how I had gotten this advice to write every day as a early PhD student, and I pretty much destroyed myself trying to follow it.
Ooh.
And all of the work that it's taken me to be like, you know what? I'm an okay writer, even though I've never had an unbroken writing streak. And like, I'm an okay writer, even though I've never done like 30 days of writing. And I woke up, my emails are scheduled to send out at 5:56 a.m. Eastern time. And I woke up out of like a dead sleep at 5:45 and was like, I should cancel that email. Like that feels vulnerable. That feels tender. Like, I'm not going to do it. And like, I was like, go back to sleep. Like, the baby is asleep. You should be sleeping. And I then sort of like went about my morning and kind of forgot that I had put this thing out there and to thousands of people. And then when I came back from drop off and breakfast, there were 3 emails in there that were like, thank you for saying this. This is something I didn't know. And I just remembered kind of like how I am never going to be the person who will say that to a stranger on a bus. I probably wouldn't even have said it live to my students. But if I can take the time to craft it, if I can revise it, if I can think about it, if I can be intentional about it and send it out in this way, I can also connect. I can share. And it doesn't have to be gate kept. I can do it. This is my email list. Like, people can unsubscribe if they choose not to be interested in this kind of vulnerable share. And I wish them well in that particular way. But there's a power that I didn't always feel as an academic trying to publish or go to conferences or be in those places, that when I, control the flow, I can show up in ways that are so much more intentional.
One of the things you said really brought up something I want to be sure to add to this call, which is that there are so many people who feel like a social media post should be like a 10-minute project or less. And the truth is that if we're talking about like even your university, even your college, like your department, if they have someone who's in charge of this, they are probably putting a lot more effort, a lot more time into social media posts than you think. And this is true for the vast majority of creators on the internet. If you're seeing something, it's possible that like 30 hours went into that 1 minute short video, like a short vertical video.
Yeah,
And
don't
so
I know it? Yeah.
and so I just really want people to consider like, yes, your time is precious. Yes, your time is limited, but your words are meaningful. And it's okay to give yourself more time for that social media post or revision time for that social media post if it's something that you feel like will help you. You can take more time. You can take as much time as you want, but just don't let it be so much time that you're never hitting publish at all.
Yes. Well, and not to like sing the praises of LinkedIn because it's not really my particular jam, but there is
Mhm.
something really beautiful about some of these other. Twitter was so fast and
Yeah.
things were so ephemeral. And now there have been sort of algorithm shifts in a lot of different places, but for better or for worse, LinkedIn is one of the places where you don't necessarily get punished for publishing once every 6 months, once
Definitely
a
not.
year,
Yeah.
because they do kind of maintain this beautiful archive for you. And so if you are a person who likes to think about things and likes to be really deliberate and really intentional, you don't need to necessarily opt out of all of these things. You can find a project, a place in the sort of online umbrella that meets the tempo that makes you feel
Yeah.
safe enough to do it.
And meeting the tempo and makes you feel safe. That's a really good point because there are people who push themselves to be on social media platforms they think they should be on, but it really doesn't work for their personalities and it really doesn't work for their lifestyle. And sometimes it makes them angry and frustrated and even guilty at not
Yeah.
having done more of this. So when people come to me and they're feeling like that, I say, get rid of it. Like
Yeah.
stop. It's okay to stop. It's okay to not do it. If you were going to have a platform that I still recommend you have a profile on, but you're not posting, if that's not what you want to do, LinkedIn is that place. I have a free LinkedIn profile course that's great for grad students, researchers, faculty. I have lots of links to drop in the chat after this, but I
Yeah.
want you to know that this LinkedIn profile course exists. It will walk you through step by step making that profile because that profile is one of my favorite ways to have an online presence. And if you are a graduate student, if you are an early career researcher, this will really help you get connected with people who can inform your career, who can help guide the decision making that you have, especially if you're open to chatting with them one-on-one.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This has like filled me up like top to bottom. Just like
Yay! This has
I
been
feel
so good. I love this is
yeah.
like the first time I've done this kind of like you Q&A meet and I love
Okay,
it.
good. Yes, we'll keep going. You're a star at it. Like
Oh,
just
I
like star
appreciate
in the making.
you.
But thank you so much for having me on and for being
Yeah.
willing to spread a little bit of the word about AcWriMo out. If you're looking for some place where you want intention around your writing and not necessarily like belt yourself to the chair and get it done, um, Dr. Kate Henry and I were your people.
And
So
I have dropped the tiny URL link to sign up for the free AcWriMo resources in the description below. So if you're here on YouTube, that is already there.
awesome. Well, thank you so
Yay!
much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to get an email next time we go live. Thank you, everyone.